Good day, creative spirit. Today we're going to be looking into the gifts and challenges of winter. And so the themes that the hymns that I have chosen today are very much within that theme. So let's start with Voices United at number 278 in the quiet curve of evening.
Quiet calm of evening, in the sinking of the days, in the silky void of darkness, you are there. In the lapses of my breathing, in the space between my ways, in the crater carved by sadness, you are there. You are there. You are there. You are there. In the rests between the phrases, in the cracks between the stars, in the gaps between the meaning, you are there. In the melting down of endings, in the cooling of the sun, in the solstice of the winter, you are there. You are there. You are there. You are there. In the mystery of my hungers, in the silence of my rooms, in the cloud of my unknowing, you are there. In the empty cave of grieving, in the desert of my dreams, in the tunnel of my sorrow, you are there. You are there. You are there. You are there.
And one more, though likely not a familiar one. I ran across it and I thought, ooh, I like this. And this certainly speaks to our midwinter gifts and challenges. And it's from More Voices, number 71, and it's called When the Wind of Winter Blows. So I will play it through once, and then we will sing all three verses. More Voices, number 71.
When the wind of
like that. And of course, as we are still in the season of Epiphany, and we've been talking about light, I love that this not only speaks to winter, but speaks to that light as well. So there are two parts of what I'm going to sort of read and discuss next. So the theme, yes, is the challenges and gifts of winter. And just as this is sort of a side note, but I thought that it was an interesting fact, and I know that a lot of individuals have a very keen and feel themselves very attuned to Mother Earth. And so I thought this was just this next little piece was just so lovely, as it is part of that winter theme, but ironically it also discusses light. So the full moon, yes, there is a full moon coming up, and it is on the 28th of January. And it is referred to, any full moon or the full moon within January is referred to the wolf moon. And according to the Old Farmer's Almanac, it's thought that January's full moon came to be known as the wolf moon because wolves were more often heard howling at this time. It was traditionally believed that wolves howled due to hunger during winter, but we know today that wolves howl for other reasons. Howling and other wolf vocalizations are generally used to define territory, locate their pack members, reinforce social bonds, and coordinate hunting. And certainly, if I was to say to you, think of a winter scene, and or think of the quiet forest in a deep, snowy winter, a wolf and a wolf howling in that snow, and especially in a full moon glistening on the snow. I mean, it's such a, when you think about that vision, it is beautiful. And so part of the folklore that goes with the full wolf moon is that this is a time for us to remember the homeless and the hungry of the earth. So let's just take a moment in prayer, shall we? Infinite Spirit, when I pray each day for shelter for the homeless, let me not ignore the pet without a home. As I ask protection for those in areas of turmoil and unrest, let me not forget endangered species of life. When I pray that the hungry be fed, let me be mindful that all God's creatures have need of sustenance. As I ask divine assistance for those afflicted by fire, flood, earthquake, storm, or drought, let me remember that this includes every living thing. In seeking miracle cures for human disease, may I also speak for the well-being of the planet itself. Let the words of my mouth, the meditations of my heart, and the actions of my life be as one, that I may live each day in harmony with Mother Earth. Amen. And to our short reading today, it is again by Christine Waltner's Paintner, and it is called The Gifts and Challenges of Winter. And she says, I adore winter trees. Something about their bare beauty, revealing their essence against a pale sky, makes my soul sing. They remind me that winter calls us to shed what is not necessary and turn inward, seeking the gifts of silence and stillness. A winter landscape demands that we slow down to receive its invitation. There is no rushing through this season. I have a fascination with bones for the same reason. Something about this return to our own essence offers up a powerful invitation to me. In Paris, I have gone to see the catacombs, a sacred burial site underground of the bones from millions of bodies that were deposited there. Being in their presence elicited a deep sense of awe and wonder at the lives that once animated these skeletons. The brilliant minds contained in those skulls, the passionate hearts once beating within those bodies. And knowing that one day I will also be rendered into the essence of dust and bone. It can be a painful knowing, but one that brings me to a sense of cherishing life, of savoring its beauty. She invites, or I'm going to say, I'm going to invite all of you to write down some words or phrases, or if you are so inclined, a poem about the gifts and challenges of winter. So here are some questions that perhaps that will help you think about what those gifts and challenges might be for you. What does this season call forth from you? Where do you seek greater restoration and the nourishment that only darkness can bring? And what are the challenges you experience as you wait for the light to return? So you can think upon those things, and like I say, just some words may come to mind, perhaps some phrases. I don't expect everybody to be out writing poetry. That's okay, unless that's your thing. But certainly come up with some words, because we may be using those words and phrases later on in today's session. Let's just take a moment in prayer. God, there is a winter in all of our lives, a chill and darkness that makes us yearn for days that have gone, or put our hopes in days yet to be. God, you created seasons for a purpose. A spring is full of expectation, buds breaking, frosts abating, and an awakening of creation before the first days of summer. Now the sun gives warmth and comfort to our lives, reviving aching joints, bringing color, new life, and crops to fruiting. Autumn gives nature space to lean back, relax, and enjoy the fruits of its labor, mellow colors in the sky and landscape as the earth prepares to rest. Then winter, cold and bare as nature takes stock, rests, unwinds, sleeps until the time is right. An endless cycle, and yet a perfect model. We need a winter in our lives, a time of rest, a time to stand still, a time to reacquaint ourselves with the faith in which we live. It is only then that we can draw strength from the one in whom we are rooted, take time to grow and rise through the darkness into the warm glow of your springtime, to blossom and flourish, bring color and vitality into this world, your garden. Thank you, God, for the seasons of our lives. Amen. We're going to just now take a little time to sit, and I want again just to reiterate those questions. Oops, let me find them here. Some of those questions that I want you to think about while in silence. I'm going to put some slideshow of some winter scenes for you, and perhaps that'll help with. And the silence, like I said, there's not going to be any music playing. It's just the silence, and I want you to sit in that silence. And it may be a little uncomfortable, but uncomfortable is okay, because sometimes amazing things can come from that uncomfortableness. God often calls us to sit through that feeling of ill and disease, not disease, but the I should say uneasiness, so here we go with the questions again. What does the season call forth from you? Where do you seek greater restoration and the nourishment that only darkness can bring? What are the challenges you experience as you wait for the light to return? So here we go with our slideshow. To get started, I'm just going to go ahead and use a 8.5 by 11 sheet of printer paper that's had some text printed on it. It was, part of a service. And I'm going to flip it over. So here's how, and there's not a huge lot of exactness happening in all of this. So you won't need necessarily a pencil and eraser for this portion of it. But what I would do, if you want to know sort of exactly, if you want to try and make this as even as possible, just give your page a gentle, so you're in landscape form, right? And just find the center by pinching. I don't want you to make a full crease down the center because that'll be where you're going to be drawing. So just a little pinch there, and then make sure that it's nice and even. And a little pinch there, okay? And now you know where your center marks are. If it's more helpful for you to draw a very fine pencil line, go right ahead, but not necessary. Then I want you to go ahead and just take the edges. We're going to fold them in towards the center, and we're just going to go just beyond that center mark. Okay, just beyond it. Doesn't have to go very much beyond it. We're just trying to create a little bit of an overlap. And that's like probably too much, but that's okay. And then a little beyond that center mark again. Go ahead and make those creases good. And then you can go ahead and you can tape that. Tape or glue, whichever, down at this point. Right, and so just along the edges there, a little section, whoops. I wouldn't put it on the section that you're folding over, only because you may put too much glue on it. If this was the side that you're folding over, if there's too much glue here, you'll end up gluing it all together, right? So only put the glue on the side that's the bottom side there. Now, if you'd rather with tape works, if you'd rather just fold it over, crease it, and add some tape along there, that's fine too. Okay, then you have, so now you've got something that essentially looks like that, right? You've got text, and you can decide at this point whether you want your text going down the page or whether you want the text sort of reading up. And I like, depending on, for the most part, I generally like the text coming up this way, reading up. It gives a nice, sort of a grounding at the bottom, even though, I mean, shouldn't really matter that much because I'll be folding that under anyway. But I like the irregularity here. And I think it's probably easier if you were concerned about the words, like if you were using something that spoke very much to your theme of winter and gifts and challenges and that kind of thing, then you may be able to want your text to be read, and this is logically a little easier, I believe, to read this way than it is to read this way. So once you've decided whichever way you want your text, make sure that you're putting it face down again, and then you're going to want to fold up. This is how we're going to make our bottom. Now, depending on how wide you want it, and you'll notice this 8.5 by 11 paper does not make very large luminary, right? The bottom's not very deep. They're not huge. So like I say, a tea light is about all that you're going to be able to get in it anyway. But go ahead and turn the bottom up. And if somebody says, well, I need to know, Carolyn, how much? Well, a little less than a quarter, but not, maybe a fifth of the way up. Eyeball it. This is, really, if you want to just take some scrap paper and do this with me the first time, just so that you can get an idea of what size and how to sort of change your sizes, then that's fine too. So you fold the bottom up, and once you've done that, we're going to sort of open up those pages. And we're going to do what we call in origami is a squash fold, right? So you've got an open end, you want to get your fingers in there, and you want to open up the bottom end. And that crease that you'll see there, I want you to align it with that fold or that crease that's happening there in the middle, okay? And then just go ahead and give those a good solid folding crease right along there. Give that a good, make sure those are nice and flat. And then you're going to want to just fold this up again just a little bit beyond that half mark where the half crease was, and then fold this down a little bit. I'll turn it around to see a little bit past that crease or just up to that crease. You need something, of course, to glue together, right? So we want to just add a little glue, and again, tape may help here too. I'm just going to undo that really quickly because this is something I forgot earlier. It would help actually right here too if we added glue to those edges, because then they will help glue the whole bottom down. And then that will be your bottom. Now, one other thing before we start doing our pattern, because some people might be saying, well, Carolyn, why are we not drawing on this before we started folding? And the reason being is that I want all of the creases in so you know sort of where the side is. Some of these, I went ahead and I did the image around the side, right? And that's okay. That's, that's fine. In some cases, you may want the image strictly as much in the center as possible. So you need to know where these side folds are going to be before you do that. And that's really all that we're doing here before we go ahead and draw. So then now we need to find these side edges. And by doing so, we're going to take this paper, this corner, so you sort of got a diamond shape here. You're going to fold this in so that this edge just fits inside of that diamond shape. Again, don't worry too much about exactness here. We're not looking at perfect science or anything like that. And then do the same on the other side. Okay, so that point going into sort of that V in there. And then just give it a good crease. And now you know, if you flip it over, now you know exactly what will be solely on the front of your, on the front of your piece, right? So that it'll be when it's folding, when it's sitting flat, this will be the front, these will be the sides and the back, okay? So then you can go ahead and just lay that flatter, just unfold those sides again, so that you've got a fairly flat surface now to draw on, but you know where the sides are going to be, right? Now you can start doing your pattern, and be that whether you want to go with the example that I sent out that had the birch bark, the birch trees in it, and then or just the trees, and then add some silhouettes of animals, or whether you want just some animals, or whether you want just the trees, or whether you want the branches, right? Just the tree branches, just like that. Just then go ahead and take your Sharpie and free draw it. Again, we're always trying to stay within the process, so we're not trying to perfect anything. So I don't want you to spend a lot of time drawing with pencil and then having to go back over with your marker. The little birch trees are super simple, and it's really quite a pleasing, it's very much like the repetitive pattern process that we've done in the past. So this crease, this fold line here is going to be at the bottom of my bag. No, I take that back. It's not quite. The bottom of the bag is there. So this crease actually is allowable drawing space. And then the sides. So what I'm going to do, you want to think again, some trees are going to be in the foreground, some trees are going to be in the background. And really simply, so we'll do a larger one in the foreground. You know what, and I'll do it over the longer piece of text here. And I'm not going to give it a bottom, I'm going to have it in the foreground so it's like it's just coming right up. And you notice I'm not worrying about it being a solid line, or a straight line I should say. And then just sort of cut it off at the top and give it a little bit of curve. And then when I'm going ahead and I'm creating the birch bark, really it's again, it's kind of a doodling thing, which is, fun. But I do give it a little bit of an angle, a little bit of a curve, and then just kind of, and then do some scribbles, a little solid, and then a little bit longer with a bit of a curve, and then switch sides, and then maybe in the center, right? And then maybe back down here again with a little bit of a curve, and maybe this side, a little bit of a curve, and maybe a little bit back on the same side. Try to, try some random, a little bit of a curve, and that just gives the illusion then that this is actually a round as opposed to a flat surface, right? And it doesn't all have to be, it's kind of random. The size, vary the size, and there. Kind of gives, I think people are going to understand that that is a birch tree, right? Sure, great. And then you could do another one. Maybe this one's not going to be, maybe this one's going to be further in the background, so we'll start it about here. And maybe it'll only go to there, and it doesn't have to be as big. And again, the same kind of idea. Be aware of the size of the tree that you're dealing with here. And all right, so you get the gist of things here. This is pretty, it's just fun. Okay, maybe you want one that, maybe you want one here. And again, this can just go, right, they don't have to all, maybe this one goes up over the paper. And maybe it also has a branch that goes off to the side. And so then you would go ahead and just do your all right, and continue with your birch bark. Right, and continue that down. And you can just do some trees like that. And if you're, concerned about the bottom, you wanted to sort of give it, once you had all your trees done and you wanted to give a better sense of ground covering, you could do that. You could go, go through and give some sort of sense of snowy kind of ground. Maybe you've got another tree you want to start there then. And do the same thing, right? And you could just leave the trees like that. You could even go right around the back. And I just thought of something that I totally forgot to tell you because that's exactly how I go. You know this by now. You know this of me. All right. Before you start drawing on your paper, stick a scrap piece of paper on the inside. See, I have used it. It does have all the little squigglies on it. Just slide this. I can't believe I forgot to do that. Well, yeah, I can actually. Just stick that in there so that when you're drawing, it doesn't come through on the other side because some of those actual spots did start coming through. You're not likely to be able to see that with the white balance from there, but trust me that it is. All right, so yeah, I totally forgot to do that. Once you've decided that your piece is done there, then just stick your hand inside of it, sort of pop it open, flatten out the bottom, and just give the bottom a little extra crunch on the, just a little extra pinch on those sides. And then these sides, you want to try and invert that middle fold, right? So just sort of push it down and then just bring the sides like that. Kind of like a paper bag, right? I mean, that's essentially what this is turning into. Down like that. There we go. And then you can sort of, and that just helps give that, helps with how it stands. And there you have, and then you can add your light to it, and there you have your luminary. If you're starting from scratch, well, if you're starting, let's see, the newsprint. So what I did, I took a section that had text, but again, it's got a lot of ads on the other side, so I'm not 100% sure this is going to work. But again, if you wanted, depending on the height, if you want to adjust the height of your luminaries, again, it depends on this height, right, for your piece. And certainly depending on the length of it, so landscape, depending on how long it is going to depend on how wide your bag is this way, or your lantern is this way. And then depending on how tall it is, because of course remember that you'll still be folding the bottom down, right? So that's going to depend then on the height. So if you want something a little bit shorter, start with a piece that's a little bit shorter. I've gone ahead and I've already folded it in. Now I didn't bother with the center mark. I just went ahead and I was like, okay, if I sort of eyeball it, and that looks good enough to me. And in this case, I'll just show you. I mean, you can simply do, if you don't have glue and you've got Scotch tape around, then go ahead and just use some tape. And then again, sort of decide on the bottom, the width of the, how, again, it would depend on, I suppose, on how many lights, if you're trying to put a lot of lights in there, how wide the bottom needs to be. And you're going to just turn that up. And then you're going to sort of pinch the sides, push the sides in a bit to open up that column, right? Because this is essentially now just a sleeve. I like to put my hand right onto it. Sleeve. Yes. Okay. So just fold that up and then push those ends in so it pops open that sleeve. And then I just like to stick my finger in the corner because it's easier. Then you can squash fold. So again, the crease that is along here, match it with that folding center crease here. Press down, squash it down, match the center creases. Make that nice and crisp. Fold that just past the center. And then again, fold this down. And you know what? You see how that's, if I'm not using glue, I'm just going to add a little extra tape here just because it's going to make it easier to fold. And then just past the center again. And tape. Just go ahead and give that some tape right there. And then to create the sides, right, we're going to fold in to sort of have this point. And it's not going to fit in. Don't try and like fold it on an angle. Just fold it in where it comes sort of to meet that point somewhat. Right? So what I'm saying is if there's a gap like that, whoops, let's put that in the frame, Carolyn. If there's a gap like that, right, like this, don't worry about it. Just fold it in. Actually, this could be the mark right here. This corner right here, fold it right along that corner. Make it as straight as possible. And same with this. So you're going to fold it from this corner, make the crease right there, okay, from along those corners. Fold it in. And there, that will be then the surface that you have. That'll be the front surface that you have to work with, and then that'll be with the sides surface. Then, yes, hello, then you would go ahead and you would slide in your magical piece of scrap paper so that it doesn't bleed through, because definitely when you're using, as you well know, that newsprint is going to be even, thinner, so it'll definitely bleed in. And then if you just want to do some tree branches, coming down, and it could come down from the side and just sort of in craggly kind of branch. Let's see, maybe like this, and then maybe another one that comes out this way, and this could just come here, and this could veer off, and maybe there's one that comes up like this, and then this comes out. And then you would just go ahead and you would fill it all in, right? And you may not necessarily want to keep your nose too involved, too close to it, because when you're doing this much black marker, it's going to smell. It's going to get a little high, right? But then you would just go ahead, and then you could add some, little rough branches and continue with filling in of all of these branches down here. Right, and just go ahead and create that tree branch. If you wanted to put an owl in it, by all means. If you wanted to put birds in it, or if you wanted to focus on that, the wolf moon, and think about, that this is that time to stop and think of the homeless and the hungry all over Mother Earth, be them humankind or creature kind. And you want to hold them in prayer while you do this. And then again, if there are words that are coming to you, you could add the words in. This right, again, this is your creativity. So if there are, if you want just to add the word rest, like somewhere on a tree limb, there's nothing to say you couldn't add the word rest. And you'll notice in this particular case, because I wasn't clearly thinking ahead, the text is going left to right from the newsprint. And ideally, again, if you're doing the trees, it's more effective to have the text going this way because it creates sort of that texture along with the tree trunk. So just as an FYI there, right? This may be too distracting now because people can read it. But nevertheless, this is why oftentimes we do some, and we do them with scrap paper because we don't really know all the time that it's going to work. And it's an easy enough thing to do with scrap paper, right? So again, we just stick our hand inside of it. We redo those creases so that they're all going in the right direction. Those side creases then that was there, we sort of want to fold it the other way. Like that. And then these edge creases, and then the one right in the center of the side. Just start pushing it the other way, and it will naturally fold down. Give it a little extra crease, and there you go. Now, let's try something. So here's a single little light that I can put in, and you may or may not be able to see. Let's see. Actually, that's not too bad right now with the ads. Well, you can see it a bit. Let's see if that. The ads, you can see through it, right? So that's why I say that the more ads and things that are happening in the background, you may find a problem down the road. It may not be. And again, if you wanted to make it out of the tracing paper, let me just quickly do this. And I honestly didn't do one in tracing just because you know, it was really about the text paper. But if you wanted to write, I mean, like I say, if you had some questions, or answers to those questions about, you know, what is it that is, what's the season calling from you to do, or, you know, where do you seek your restoration or your nourishment that only the darkness could bring? Like, where is that for you? And maybe it's not. That's okay too. So I didn't really do one that you would be doing your own words on. But I honestly don't know if this paper is going to be strong enough to sit up on its own, especially if you put lights inside of it. Let's just fold it up. Let's give it a bigger bottom. Maybe that'll help. Maybe it won't either, but. And then we're going to squash. Oh, right. And there's that section I need to tape down again so that it's easier to fold. So I'll squash that. Line up those center creases, and then fold it, and then squash this one down and line up those center creases, and then just fold that up just past the center, fold this down just past the center. Whoops, try to do it straight. I know I say that there is no wrong, but sometimes there's an obvious, you know, corrections could be helpful. And then this, fold in the side, and then this, find those corners again, fold in the side. Okay. So then, and then again, of course, we're just going to flatten that out so you know what you're working with. This would be your, if you can see those creases, right? This is the front side, right? And then these are the sides. So that crease is the side. So you can have that stuff go around if you want. You would put in definitely your scrap paper. And then maybe you want to, and you can do it with a ruler. You could certainly give yourself some sort of a straight edge if you wanted to, if you were going to write words this way along it. And maybe you just want to, or maybe you want to write them, you know, the other way. I'll probably do it in the finer marker. And you could say, you know, something like, I mean, whatever, and this is all very personal, so I find calm in the dark. And maybe I'm called to let go of something. And again, you could do it, you know, all the way along, one right after the other. You could space them out differently. You could use different handwriting if you wanted to. And you could say, let's see. And let's see, the winter calls me to be still. Right. And then you would take out your scrap piece. If we were to unfold this, let's see what size we've got going on here. Again, I'm just going to crease that little bottom, pinch that bottom side again just to help, so that just helps it stand a bit. And then the sides, make sure that these side creases are good. And then this one, you want to have it go the opposite way, so just get that one down in there. Give it a pinch the opposite way. Now, the finer the paper, what I'm finding here is that the finer the paper, because those creases are good creases, you might find them a little more difficult to pop the opposite direction, but that's okay. They are still there. The paper will, once you give it a minute, will find those. And then there, that's... And then if you wanted, I mean, you could still do the tree, you could fill this all full of text, or maybe there's a poem that you like that has to do with winter, or perhaps, you know, perhaps some of the lyrics to one of the hymns that we did today that speaks very much to you. You know, warming the night with the light. You could, I mean, you could go ahead and put the lyrics in, and then do the tree, you know, over top of your own words. Free for all. You know the however your soul speaks to you to create, then that is wonderful. And let's just see if I put, oops, I go ahead and put the lights in here, if this will stand. I'm sure with the weight of the battery pack, it will. Yeah, it's gonna, you know, pop out a little bit more just because it's the thinner paper, but certainly there's a lot of glow happening there. So there you are. Lots of ideas, lots of opportunity to be creative, and however you feel you want to, you know, whether you like the wolf moon, whether you want just the text, whether you want just the trees, whichever. I encourage you to think outside the box, and this is your winter of gifts and challenges, right? Not difficulties, challenges, right? And okay, so now that we've seen the process, and perhaps that's given you some ideas, and hopefully if maybe you've jotted some things down. That's always a good thing, that when these ideas or words or sentence phrases come to mind, to go ahead and jot them down. Don't say to yourself, oh, I'll come up with them later, because I have found as time goes on, I don't remember those things any longer. I need to jot them down. So we're going to go ahead and recenter, all right? As we went ahead and worked through how to create these lovely illuminaries for, or luminaria, or lanterns, or whatever you may refer to them as we worked through how to create them, it is now time to recenter. And perhaps some words came to mind, or some phrases came to mind that I hope you sort of jotted down about what gifts or challenges that the winter may bring, and perhaps in what God is calling and asking of you during this time of rest and this time of stillness, even if it is an uncomfortable stillness. He's always asking something. So let's recenter. And in the, as we've been, of course, dealing with light throughout these number of weeks, and in this season of Epiphany. I want to end off, as we are moving towards the light, I want to end off not in darkness, but in light. And as we heard an amazing poet this past week, Amanda Gorman, I would just like to use her last two bits of her poem, the Hill We Climb, that refer to light as our breathing, centering prayer. So on our first deep breath in, let's take a deep breath and say, there is always light. And on the way out, if I'm brave enough to see it. And again, deep breath in. There is always light. And on the way out, if I am brave enough to see it. And again, on the way in, there is always light. And on the way out, if I'm brave enough to be it. And together we say, Creator God, quiet my mind before it passes judgment on this prayer, my gift of time to you. Amen. And as we work towards the light, and again, as we decide or figure out what those gifts or what those challenges may be, and the challenge may just be having to sit through the darkness, may this time for you be restorative. May it put you perhaps at ease, and may you find some comfort in it. And in doing so, may you also find your aliveness. Have a wonderful week. I'll see you next week.